Time for the Big Picture Rumble. In the studio tonight, Jonathan Strong, reporter with the Daily Caller. Susan Turnbull, the former vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, current chair of the Democratic Party of Maryland, and none other than Seton, Motley, president of lessgovernment.org. Welcome to all of you, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us here tonight. President Obama signed the tax cut compromise into law today, closing the book on the several-week-long great tax debate. Both progressives and Tea Party conservatives had their problems with this deal, yet leadership was able to wrangle enough votes to pass it anyway. So is this fight over? And what challenges will both parties have moving forward in the wake of this compromise? Your thoughts on this, Seton?
Well, I wasn't a big fan of the compromise. Now that it's done, there is an interesting perspective to it going forward. Is the tax argument is now off the table. We could have done a lot better had we waited till the Republican majority Congress was in order. But now going forward, the tax debate's over for now. And now we can talk about actually cutting the size of government, cutting spending, without having to worry about the tax debate.
So what you're saying is the Republicans are going to come out of the gate, well,
one can only hope.
Yeah, Susie?
Well, I thought it was interesting. You said we could have done a lot better. Who could have done a lot better? The billionaires could have done a lot better if we would have waited until January.
The employers.
I mean, in fact, the people who did better in this, the only people who did okay in this are the people who are unemployed, and the people who are, in fact, doing what President Obama had promised to do, is to bring some stimulus to this. Those are the people who did better. And I think they would have done worse, because what would have happened is that more people would have been off the unemployment rolls. And what would have happened as well is that we would have had people paying more in their taxes because the payroll tax would have been higher without this compromise.
That's only for 1 year.
Yeah. Well, and that's a problem.
1 year.
Jonathan, your take.
One thing I've loathed about this entire debate is we're talking about the Bush tax cuts this, the Bush tax cuts that, but the best case scenario here, everyone's taxes stay exactly the same.
Right.
And so I'm thinking myself, my taxes aren't going down, so I don't think we should call it that. But the other thing is, to Susie's point, in that top tier, 40% of the people who would get that tax cut earn the majority of their income from the small businesses that they're owning or operating. And so there's this clear, sizable margin, and it's not the majority of them.
I realize that definition of small businesses includes Stephen Bechtel, who's got a $20 billion corporation.
But those small businesses
Charles
employ a lot
Koch,
of
who's got a
people.
$20 billion corporation.
That's not a small business.
It is by the definitions that Fox News uses, because their sub-S corporations are variations.
They hire lots of people.
You're talking 2%. And if they were hiring lots of people, then we wouldn't have all these people unemployed right now. They would have been hiring these people going along with your comment.
You cannot blame small businesses for the recession.
No, I'm not blaming small businesses. We're talking about the top 2%, where most people in the top 2% said, go for it.
You also cannot blame small businesses for being a little scared to hire when we spent the last 2 years with this Pelosi-Reed Congress assaulting the free market in every possible direction. And they therefore they're waiting for the next anvil to fall in the private sector from the government, and they're a little tentative to hire people.
And it was so much better with George W. Bush. So
absolutely.
much better. I mean, the economy was really soaring.
It was for 7.5 years.
Oh, really?
Well, this is the question, Jonathan. Why not just go back to, and unfortunately the question's off the table, I suppose, but why wasn't anybody, and maybe Susie, I should be asking you, but I'd like Jonathan's take on this first. Why wasn't the messaging out of the White House on this thing, let's just go back to the tax rates that we had under Clinton? I mean, that produced a balanced budget. I mean, for that matter, why aren't Republicans saying, we like balanced budgets. You had a balanced budget the last year of Clinton. Let's raise taxes back up to where they were when Clinton was president.
What you're doing there is you're taking a span of time and the economy during that span of time and making it sound like the tax rate during that era is the reason the economy is good. That's not the case.
Oh, when they dropped the tax rate, the economy went to hell.
Well,
just like
is that the cause, or was it a global financial meltdown? That's really the cause of the recession we're in.
But you're saying during the 8 years, but during the 8 years that George W. Bush was president, not one private sector job was created. There was a net
that's
loss.
garbage, Tom, and you know it is.
The jobs that were created were all government jobs or government contractors.
Tom,
100%
There's
of them.
turnover
that's
every
garbage
month
on stilts.
There's private jobs created every month, even
And
if
jobs
the rates,
lost. I said net jobs.
But you're, and we've discussed this before, and it's the same canard you used before. You cannot hang September 11th, which cost $1 trillion in private sector wealth, on President Bush.
It's all because you're...
It was $1 trillion in private sector wealth.
Okay, can I just say something? If you're going to bring up September 11th, I want to do exactly what Jon Stewart did this week, which is talk
That's
about...
a good person named Elector for serious policy.
Talking about September 11th, last night he had 4 first responders on his show. And so what are we doing? Everybody can talk about 911. We're going to be standing up for the first responders. We're going to be doing this stuff. And the first responders were on there because Congress, right now, there's Republicans in the Senate who can say, oh, we're going to help them, except not now, not them, not ever. I mean, that's the problem right now. They voting against the first responders. Yes, I do.
I'm talking about we're talking about the economy.
I want to spend.
You're totally changing the subject. You want to spend more money.
No, you changed it to 9/11.
No. I was talking about the economic impact of September 11th was $1 trillion of net private loss.
So
wealth.
just a quick question
And
apropos
jobs.
of this question: Is this tax deal going to benefit the Republicans or the Democrats over the next 2 years?
it could cause some wariness among the Tea Party Republicans that maybe John Boehner and Mitch McConnell aren't going to be as consistently conservative as we want, and in that sense, it might end up hurting the Republicans. But that schism has already taken place in the Democratic Party, where you had a major battle between the left and the center.
I mean, clearly, there's a lot of people are upset about this because most people feel that no one won, that there was a compromise. Now, in some respects, that's a good thing, because we can't have Congress moving forward in January with the schisms that have occurred so far. It doesn't work. What I think American people want is progress. They want to have don't ask, don't tell. They want to have.
Who says that? What debate are you saying for that?
Excuse me. Let me complete my sentences here. They want don't ask, don't tell. They want to start treaty. They want a lot of things that need to be done, and they want to move forward, and that most of all, they want jobs. They don't want to see senators debating little picky-uni items to reading full bills on the floor of the Senate to stall things rather than to get things done.
Well,
Seton, very briefly, who is the winner out of this?
Well, I don't think what I want to say is Barack Obama's not triangulating. He's not moderating. At first, he called the Republicans hostage takers, and then the second time, he couldn't even address the public. He appointed a president czar in Bill Clinton and left the stage. Yeah. So I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of centrism from him going forward.
My take on this is that Barack Obama has out-triangulated Bill Clinton. He's come up with something altogether new, which is this art of compromise that, frankly, because only about 20% of us are really liberal and 20% of us are really conservative,
40.
However you call it, most Americans just want to see things get done. And that's the perception of Obama. I think he's got a big political win.
You think Obama, in not endorsing the substance of his compromise?
I don't like this bill at all. I'm just saying politically, I think he's going to be the winner.
He won't stick with this, though.
President Obama's Afghan war strategy review came out Thursday, showing mixed accomplishments in a still very unstable region.
I want to be clear. This continues to be a very difficult endeavor. But I can report that thanks to the extraordinary service of our troops and civilians on the ground, we are on track to achieve our goals.
However, the war report was met by protests at the White House, or protesters, excuse me, who didn't agree with the assessment. Over 100 people were arrested. Also, a new poll shows that 60% of the American population disapprove of the war in Afghanistan, highest number since that conflict began 9 years ago. And the Red Cross warned yesterday that Afghanistan is turning into a humanitarian nightmare, one of the worst in the world. So is this war turning into President Obama's mistake, and will the public outrage over it eventually force Obama's hand and a withdrawal? Jonathan.
Easily it could, because the situation is not improving there, and it all comes down to the problem of trying to institute a 21st century democracy in a tribal pre-industrial society. And it doesn't work, and the government is debilitated by corruption and other problems.
Susie, your thoughts. Is this LBJ?
It's sort of feeling like that right now. Basically, I don't disagree with what you just said. I think that we seem to be going around in circles, and the question is how do you get out of this? How do you get out of this? And I think this week with the loss of Richard Holbrooke, who had dedicated his life to service and dedicated his life to this conflict, it really is remarkable that we don't know what's next.
I think you have unanimity on this issue, on this panel. I was for, from the very beginning, going in, taking out the government in Iraq, in Afghanistan and Iraq, and just leaving. And say, look, whoever sets up afterwards, just remember how you got there. We can be back. But, you know, again, what Jonathan said, it's very, very difficult to plant democracy in that very tough soil.
Or any place else, frankly. I mean, you know, occupying another country, we 235 or more or less years ago, we said,
get out of here.
Yeah, right.
It was a lot more civil than what's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah. So what's driving this? What's got Obama locked into this? Is it the military-industrial complex? Is it generals who love having wars because people get promotions faster in the military? Is it an inertia? Is it like the big problem that LBJ had in '68, where Nixon was secretly negotiating with the South Vietnamese behind the scenes, asking them, "Don't end the war. I'll give you a better deal." I mean, Nixon had to call Everett Dirksen and say, "This is treason. We've got the CIA intercepts. This was just released a year ago. The tapes of this. The nation just learned of this. I mean, what's going on?
Politically, it's precarious because if you leave and the disaster ensues that would happen if you left right now, and Democrats are known in polling to be weaker on national security, you leave yourself vulnerable to charges of pulling out too soon. It's just a horrible situation that I wouldn't wish on anyone.
Even though it was a Republican, Jerry Ford, who lost the Vietnam War, and it was Democrats who won World War I and World War II.
Obama surged.
Oh, I know. Susie, your thought. We got about a minute here left.
I think that's right. I mean, it's Eugene Robinson said it today. It's one step forward, two steps back.
Right.
And in some respects, it's okay in sewing if you do that, but in war, it may be pretty tough.
And it's basically, Jonathan's right. No one wants to be. No one wants the loss on their watch.
Yeah.
And whenever we leave, it's going to be a loss, and no one wants it on their watch.
Okay. Well, my take on this is that what President Obama should do is what Senator George Aiken recommended to LBJ back in 1967, which is declare victory and come home. Yeah. And I don't see any other way out of that. Still ahead, WikiLeaks and nuclear war. More Rumble when we come right back. And we're back with tonight's Big Picture Rumble. I'm joined by Jonathan Strong, reporter with the Daily Caller, Susan Turnbull, the former vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, current chair of the Democratic Party of Maryland, and Seton Motley, president of lessgovernment.org. Let's get back into it. Julian Assange is now out of prison, but there are reports that the U.S. Justice Department is building a case against him for conspiracy charges. Assange responded to these allegations this morning. Take a look.
Does a court system encourage people to lodge documents at court, and is that a crime? Of course not. Does any journalist, by the fact that they give out their number on their card, encourage the solicitation of documents? Of course not.
So is Assange's WikiLeaks an illegal organization? And if so, what's the difference between it and major publications like the New York Times, who also published classified documents? Seton.
Well, again, it's a case-by-case basis. What are they publishing, and how? And is it a national security breach? Is it a stolen thing to the point where it's damaging to national security? And
but the New York Times is publishing it. The Guardian is publishing it.
If it's national security and it's stolen documents, it's stolen property. Just like if you are selling or giving away stolen movies or stolen CDs. So,
Susie, should the New York Times have gone to jail when they published the Pentagon Papers, which were stolen?
I think it's a tougher case right now because, in fact, we don't know where this stuff is coming from, and there's an underlying case here with whoever gave those documents to WikiLeaks.
Well,
now,
Bradley Manning, I can see him getting nailed. That's
yeah. I mean, and he's probably going to get nailed, and the question but the question then goes, is okay, so then what's next? Personally, I hope this guy gets nailed. And
Julian Assange?
I really do. Personally, I think, and it may surprise you, but the reason I hope he gets nailed is because I think that there's importance to have transparency, but there's also reasons why certain conversations should be private. And I think that's how things can work in any professional environment.
Interesting. Jonathan?
Everyone wants to compare WikiLeaks to something we already know. Is this the Pentagon Papers? Is WikiLeaks a terrorist organization? But what it is something entirely new. You couldn't conceive of a data dump of this magnitude before information was digitized. And Democrats figured out in a hearing this week that the Espionage Act is toothless in this circumstance because it only covers the passing of real physical documents. So these are new circumstances that we're engaging in, and the answers aren't as easy as everyone wants to think that they are.
Interesting. My take on this is that if we still had adversarial and investigative journalism in the United States, which kind of ended with Jack Anderson and Woodward and Bernstein, that there wouldn't be a WikiLeaks, that WikiLeaks stepped into a vacuum that was created by the infotainment industry that has just stopped reporting the news and stopped digging into things, because there's a lot of stuff that should have been. Yeah, but well, then are you digging into, you know, looking behind the secrets? I mean, literally behind the secrets. You know, the people who were exposing the Gulf of Tonkin fraud, you know, during the Johnson administration. I mean, there have been, you know, the people who are exposing the fraud of the whole Iraq thing. You know, these kinds of journalism are just, you know, very rarely happening, and when they are, they're almost always happening in the blogosphere. You know, places like the Daily Caller or the liberal versions of it. So I think that this is something that is, I agree, it's something new, but it's something that's come along because everybody else is failing. The mainstream media is failing, but who knows? Republicans in the Senate continue to stall debate this week on the START nuclear treaty.
Yes. In just a few minutes, we're going to proceed to the START treaty. I'm told the Republicans are going to make us read the entire treaty in an effort to stall us from passing it. Isn't that wonderful?
They just delay and delay and delay. And I'm not going to stand here and listen to them come to the floor of the United States Senate asking why we're trying to do the important business of the country at the last minute.
And in what was perhaps more than a coincidence, an article appeared in the New York Times yesterday about what to do if your city is attacked by a nuclear bomb. So are Republicans putting our country in danger by not allowing a vote on a treaty that could help secure loose nuclear material around the world? What is the strategy here? Jonathan, why is John Kyle...
Here's why. John Kyle and the rest of the senators...
And Jim DeMint in particular.
They take advising and consenting very seriously. This is less about the substance of the START treaty, which I imagine is not really that controversial when they get down to it. But it's about them having the proper amount of time to debate. And to me and you, that doesn't sound very real, but it's actually how senators
Did you
think.
watch what happened when John Kerry was on the floor?
Right, but what Republicans
he said, well,
like Kyle
hang on
want...
just a second. What Kyle said he wanted was time to consider amendments, right? He wanted a half a day to consider amendments. So John Kerry gets up there and he says, okay, which Republican wants to offer amendments? Crickets. And then he says to Senator Kyle, he says, okay, can we move along? And then Kyle says, no, we want time to consider amendments. So Kerry says, okay, who wants to offer amendments? Crickets. And this went on over and over and over again. You telling me that's debate?
Yeah, I talked to a lot of congressional sources on both sides of the aisle.
You can watch it on C-SPAN.
And what they're telling me is that that's the real root of the issue. It's been not just on START, by the way. It's on the DREAM Act. It's on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It's on all these issues where Reid has been trying to hammer this through without the proper amount of debate.
Hammer it through? They've been in session for 2 years. And in those 2 years, there's been filibuster after filibuster or threat of filibuster after filibuster. In this instance, you have you have 2/3 of the Senate who wants this treaty to go through. You have Richard Lugar, who's the ranking Republican, who has been working in this field forever. You've had debate after debate in committee, and you have exactly what Tom just described. There is no excuse to put people's lives at risk. There is no excuse to not do whatever it takes to move this treaty.
Seton, this was a treaty that was initiated by Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev. It was first signed by George Herbert Walker Bush. It was first signed by George Herbert Walker Bush, and his son liked it.
I don't think anything substantive, and I certainly qualify this as substantive, should occur in a lame duck session.
Why not? It's Congress.
Because Congress just lost. The Democrats.
This is in the Senate. Treaties are only ratified in the Senate.
I
and the
understand
Senate
that.
has not changed
I don't
hands.
want anything substantive to transpire in a lame duck Congress. Period.
I think, though, this is bipartisan.
These people were
There's
elected.
smart reasons to support this treaty. The most significant of which is that it will give the U.S. leverage with Russia in discussions over Iran, and Iran getting nuclear weapons. And it's supported by secretaries of state from both parties. It's supported by all the major generals. You know, the substance of this treaty, I think most people who are experts in the subject agree it's pretty good.
This treaty has the verify and the trust but verify in it, and that's the whole point.
I mean, and exactly what you said, which is no one's arguing with the policy, really. You may be arguing with the policy, but basically no one else is arguing with the policy. Yeah. It's all about the process, and they went through an extensive policy to get where they are.
Okay, we have to wrap it on that. And finally, a war over Christmas erupted in the U.S. Senate this week, with a lot of legislation left on the agenda. Harry Reid threatened to keep the Senate in session for the week after Christmas, which didn't sit so well among Republicans. Take a look.
It is impossible to do all of the things that the majority leader laid out without disrespecting one of the two holiest of holidays for Christians.
My question, Madam President, is where were their concerns about Christmas as they had filibuster after filibuster on major piece of legislation during this entire Congress? So it's offensive to me and millions of working Americans across this country for any senator suggest that working through the Christmas holidays is somehow sacrilegious or disrespectful.
So, quick fire question. We have about a minute. Who wins the war on Christmas? Republicans or Democrats? Seton?
No one. Everyone I know that works on the Hill is just upset that they have to be there on Christmas. It's a bad move. This is not this much in lame duck.
Yeah.
The Republicans made a major mistake in invoking this, particularly at a time when people are working two jobs to make their ends meet.
And calling this the war on Christmas.
I'm with Seton. The Democrats that I talked to are groaning privately that they're going to have to be there, and that might not be much solace for Americans who are out of work, but that's Washington for you.
Okay, and my take, for what it's worth, is that the big winner in the war on Christmas here is Bill O'Reilly. He invented the term. Every year he drags his canard out. He's looking for excuses to say, see, and he gets all the PR out of it. So, anyhow. Jonathan Strong, Susie Turnbull, Seton Motley, thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Great to have
be
you
with you.